Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown, Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Coming to you, of course, from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Monday, February 13th. At least it didn't land on a Friday. Dustin Schutte with me from Outsider.com. I'm Jim Coyle, of course. Hope you guys had a great weekend. It was a fantastic sports weekend all the way around. The Super Bowl, we'll talk about that, was great until the very end. College basketball was great. Great games. Indiana with a huge road win at Michigan. The Colts probably have their new coach. I want to talk about the Big Ten and the National Player of the Year. Let's see. Oh, number one, South Carolina destroyed number 3 LSU, who had been undefeated in the women's basketball. And the Super Bowl halftime. Lots to talk about, Dustin Schutte.
There's a ton to talk about. I can't wait. This is like Christmas morning, after the day after the Super Bowl.
Well, Mondays are always great, without question. Of course, now you add the Super Bowl into that equation, which it was a fantastic game right up until the last minute when they make that defensive holding call, which, man, that was BS. That was a weak call. I mean, those guys all have hands on each other. He didn't grab his jersey. If he grabs a jersey, I'm good with a hold. And when you see that stretch, yeah, he didn't do that. He had his arm around it. That ball was not even catchable. Nobody said that. That ball was not catchable. It was 10 yards over his head. So how that got through, I have no idea. But we don't know if Philadelphia what would have happened. We assume that they would have kicked a field goal. Maybe he scored a touchdown. We don't know. But let's say they just have to kick a field goal. But they don't get to run the timeout like that. And Philadelphia would have gotten the ball back. What would have happened? I don't know. But the point is, it was a great game, kind of ruined by an official. Damn it. I'm sick and tired of officials in sports. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, I used to be so anti-automation in sports, like baseball. Never would I consider allowing the ball strikes to be called by the computer. Now I think that it's a must. It's a must. You need the umpires in there, but they've gotten so bad in sports that I'm like, yeah. Especially, with baseball, with that makes it. Even with replay, there are things that you can look at and you can't. Well, that's BS.
Mike DeCourcy is big. He talks about that a lot when we have him on. Why are there certain rules that can be reviewed and other rules that can't be reviewed? It doesn't make sense. So either you can review everything or you can review nothing. As it pertains to the defensive holding, initially, I think everybody's knee-jerk reaction was, what are they doing? What are they doing? Why are they throwing the flag on that play? And that was also my reaction too. I didn't like the call. I still don't like it in that situation. However, after the game, Bradbury, the player who got called for it, he said, yeah, I did hold him. I was hoping they would let it slide. So when that information came out, and look, this is not a week 6 game where he's just trying to not get fined. This is the freaking Super Bowl. You may never get back there again. So to me, oh boy, we've got a situation here with Jim.
Keep going.
But to me, when he comes out and says that after the Super Bowl, that changes the entire perception, at least in my opinion. He says, yeah, I got him. I was hoping they'd allow that to go. I was hoping they'd let it slide. So that to me indicates, yep, if the Super Bowl, you may never get back. If you don't agree with the call, you're going to let them know about it. You don't care about a $15,000 fine at that stage in that situation. So it says to me, yep, there was a call. Again, do I like it in that situation? Not necessarily. But throughout the course of the game, there were a lot of bad calls. There was that scoop and score that was taken off the board for Kansas City earlier in the game. There were some other plays throughout the course of the game that probably could have been called or no called. So I still think it was a great Super Bowl. It's just the game. I think we as fans wanted the game to go to overtime, or we wanted that last minute touchdown drive. And that's as much as it is for a consumer sport. It's also mostly for the players and the coaches playing in that game, and you have to make the right call. And look, if James Bradbury says he held him, then agree with the call, then I got no issues with it. It was still a great game among the two of the best quarterbacks in the league. And we talked about this throughout the course of the season. The young guns in the NFL. Woo! I mean, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, that was one of the better quarterback duels I can remember, just from the athleticism standpoint and how they put their teams on their back. I wish we would have more Super Bowls like that. That was a great football game.
Yeah, it was. And it'd certainly be great if I hadn't spilled the coffee right here in the studio all over everything. And I mean everything. Computer chips, all kinds of stuff getting affected here as I hustle to make a quick cleanup. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know he had said that. So that changes a little bit. But yeah, I just didn't think he held him that much. But oh well, it is what it is. It was a great game.
I think it's just the fact that when you look at it on replay, and because people don't want the game to be decided by a call. And it doesn't matter whether it's week 3, the playoffs, or week or the Super Bowl. People just don't want to see that. So I think that added to the frustration. Whether or not it was the right call, well, I don't know. If the guy says he held him and it should have been called, then I'm going to agree with him. So, but I think it was a disappointing end, just because it had been so exciting for 59 minutes. And as fans, we wanted to see that excitement for the full 60 minutes. Obviously, we didn't get that, but that's okay. It was still a great football game for 59 minutes.
Well, I can tell you, if you could see what the hustle that's going on in the studio right now, it would match what was going on the field yesterday. Because, buddy, it's you spill an entire big cup of coffee on the studio desk. It causes
a problem. Yeah,
especially when you do it especially do it live during the show. Yeah, boy, it's something. Yeah, but nonetheless, it was a great Super Bowl. How about the Chiefs, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes winning this, not as favorites, losing the first half. They came back, made those adjustments, and God damn it, there I go again. Boy, this is not a good day.
Did they move the turf State Farm Stadium into the studios?
Yeah, a lot of slipping going on. A lot of slippage.
Sliding. We need to replace the Sod Father, apparently. He's now at the Eagle Studios.
That's another thing. How about the conditions those guys were playing in?
That's the bigger storyline to me, because that happens every year. It happened. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Arizona Cardinals games because who would? But this happens every freaking year with the Fiesta Bowl. And I don't understand why people don't do something about it. Like, what did they say last night? There were like six or seven players who had to change their cleats at one point in that game, at least, because of the turf conditions. People were slipping and sliding all over the place. You have the biggest game with the most at stake Look, the Fiesta Bowl is this year it was a big game because it was a college football playoff game. And then you're going to host the Super Bowl and you're not going to fix those issues. Come on. Outsider.
Yeah, speaking of issues, you see what issues I had. What was spilling is because there's no lid to drink out of this stupid ass outsider.com mug that I was using.
I don't think it was mug error. I think it was operator error.
Well, you should not have an open cup of coffee on a studio desk. Let's tell you that right now.
It's true. That is true.
Because, boy, let me tell you, it sure cleaned this desk off in a hurry. Unfortunately, didn't clean my lap off. But, yeah. All right. So, the Super Bowl halftime show. Yeah. I was like, I was busy on my phone. It was great. It was great background music.
I can't find the words apparently this morning. I don't think it was bad, but I also didn't think it was great. Like the different levels. I don't know if anybody played Super Smash Brothers on Nintendo.
I thought that was kind of cool. But
that stood out to me. I mean, I like Rihanna's music, so I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as good as last year's. I thought last year's was one of the best I've ever seen.
Let's see. We've got tons of you guys are hitting us up early and often on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Don't forget Andy Moore Honda. Go to andymorehonda.com as we are powered by Andy Moore Honda and brought to you by Endeavor Hospitality and their Wild Club and family of restaurants. Make sure you go to the Wild Club. Sign up, start earning Wild rewards today. Great places like BB's Market, whom I have mastered bacon. Mastered it. I should have taken a picture of this yesterday. I mean, mastered it. By far, I will guarantee you, anybody, I can make the best bacon you've ever tasted. Period. And I mean, boy, I'm soaking wet as well. I've got to change clothes at the break. That's a statement to make, but I take BB's bacon because it is the best. It is big and thick. It doesn't shrink up and disappear, and it's not expensive. But I put it in the oven now. I bake it. But before that, I put some pepper on it. Mm-hmm. Crushed black pepper, just a little bit, and a little bit of this instead of the cheese you'd put on your spaghetti. What is that? I forget. Grated mozzarella or whatever. But this is not that. This is like I have this five cheese thing, just like it, and I put a little of that on there instead, just a little bit. Just where you can taste it. Oh my God.
So black pepper and Parmesan cheese.
Well, I've been using this little 5 cheese thing I got, but you could probably use a little Parmesan instead and be fine. Just enough to, a flavor adder. Oh my God. It's a delicacy. As a matter of fact, the next time I go to a party where I have to bring something, I'm going to make this in big proportions and then break off the bacon into bites.
There you go.
And put something on top of it. Oh my God. Look out. I'm a mad scientist.
Who's got the hors d'oeuvres covered?
Hey, what a great weekend for sports. Indiana with a gigantic road win at Michigan. We're going to talk about that, of course, as Don Fischer joins us on the program today. Dustin Schutte will be along to join us. Pacers, man, they've gone into the tank, which is fine. They were supposed to be there. So I don't have the Colts probably have their new coach now after the Super Bowl has come to a close as Eagles offensive coordinator. Well, they do have him. I guess they've already named him. Likely new coach still. Right. Shane Steichen. Is it Steichen? I guess you'd say. I think he was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, right?
Yep.
So, yes. So they had to wait for all that to end, but hey, that's why. It cracked me up, though, that they kept Jeff Saturday. And every time they would make a cut, they would leave Jeff Saturday, pretending that, oh, yeah, we're still leaving your guy in here, Mr. Irsay. Come on.
Yeah.
That cracked me up.
Yeah, I don't really know. Just to keep a good relationship with him, maybe. I don't really know what the point was, but I don't think he was ever a legitimate option, unless everybody else turned it down, basically.
Hello to everybody down in Evansville on the Ref 97.7 ESPN. Always the right call. Thanks a lot for being along. We appreciate you guys. Hope you guys are probably having a great warm day. The weather's taken an unbelievable turn for the better. How's everybody doing up in the region and Chicago? Listening on WJOB 1240 AM and 104.7. So glad to be along with you guys. Hope you're having a great weekend. As well as 89.9 down in Marengo. All of our friends down there. Appreciate you. And everybody else listening all over the place as they have hitting up the Andy Moore Honda hotline hot and heavy. Man, everybody's on here. Kevin, Forrest, Fred, Kenneth, asking, do we have ourselves the possibility of a conference race for first place? Yeah, we'll talk about that. It's like, it's Schutte's nodding his head, and it would be great if it was. What we're going to talk about is what could have been. Oh my God. And I hate the shoulda, what coulda, shoulda stuff, but it's too easy. Indiana just doesn't lose that game to Iowa. Just take that one game away.
Yep.
I mean, forget about the loss at home to Northwestern. Northwestern's a good team. Shouldn't have lost that game, but Northwestern's a good team. Rutgers, I'm not going to complain about that. Sorry, that's not a bad loss. Losing at home, that one, shouldn't have happened. That's actually a bad loss. They could have lost, on the road at Northwestern, which is coming up, and that would have been fine, and won at home. But anyway, those are two games. But just take the one game,
right?
The Iowa game. But if you want to add the Northwestern, Indiana has 3 conference losses right now.
Yep.
Okay, you could stop right there. Add in the fact that Purdue escaped Nebraska, escaped Ohio State, escaped Michigan State, all by the skin of their teeth.
Mm-hmm.
The skin of their teeth. But that's what good teams do. So you gotta counteract. You gotta give them credit for winning the game. I'm just saying how close it is.
Razor thin.
To being a completely different story.
Right.
I'm not gonna, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but that is how close it could have been.
Right. Well, and it's still.
As a matter of fact, Indiana could actually be leading the conference right now.
Well, they could. Right. There's no question. With Purdue's got 5. Does Indiana have 5 games left? I don't have. Internet is fidgety here right now, so I don't have the standings up. I know Purdue's got 5 games left, and they've got a 2-game lead, I believe. So, and Indiana still goes to Mackey Arena. So if Indiana can win on the road at Mackey Arena, not easy to do, but I think the blueprint on how to beat Purdue is out. We saw it against Indy. We saw it in Indiana. We saw it with Iowa. We saw it with Northwestern on Sunday. If they can go and then one other team can upset Purdue, Indiana and Purdue could end the season tied, and then Indiana would own the tiebreaker with the 2 head-to-head wins. So I think it's very much alive because I think Purdue has shown in these they've lost now 2 out of 3, right? I mean, 2 of those were road games, but we've talked about all season, even when they had 1 loss to Rutgers on a last-second 3, we talked about this team is very beatable. I still think that's the case. And so I do think we have a race. Now, had Purdue won that game yesterday, I would say it's signed, sealed, delivered because it's a 3-game lead with 5 to go. 2 games, though, and Indiana has a chance to make up 1 game directly. And by the way, I'm sure we'll talk about this throughout the show. Boy, Zach Edey's a really good player, but right now, Trace Jackson-Davis might be the player.
Okay, I don't want to people, because we cover Indiana mostly, get labeled as a homer, which just drives me insane. I am the last person that is that. But I am going to argue for Trace Jackson-Davis in the fact of I'm sick and tired of it listening to people to basically have already signed over the player of the year to Zach Edey.
I agree with that.
Yes, he is a leading candidate, but stop handing the damn award out in January. Why don't you wait until the season plays out to see what happens with his team? He's lost 2 out of the last 3. He's playing well, but does he affect a game as much as Trace Jackson-Davis does? That's my defensively. Does he? I don't know. Trace Jackson-Davis has more blocks, is much more athletic than Zach Edey's a great player. Do not misunderstand that I am downgrading him. He doesn't foul a lot because he's so big, but he's also not as mobile. And I think that Trace Jackson-Davis is, I don't know. I'm just done with people mailing the award in, because there's no way you can say definitively right now that Zach Edey is the player of the year over Trace Jackson-Davis. There is absolutely no way. And let's wait to see what happens. Let's let things play out a little bit here.
Here's what I would argue. So I agree with you. I think it's right now neck and neck. When you look at the way that those 2 guys have played down the stretch, especially Trace Jackson-Davis, I mean, he has elbowed his way into that conversation without question. So we want to see what happens down these final couple weeks of the season. No question. What I would argue about Zach Edey, people mailing it in with him and giving him the award in January, is who would you put in that conversation in January? And we do this all the time. We had written Indiana. I don't want to say we've written them off, but we said there's no chance they're going to win a Big Ten title. There's no chance they're going to get to the Final Four. Now that's very much alive. Things change. So in January, in my opinion, you could have given the award to Zach Edey. The way he was playing, the way he affected games, the way Purdue was winning, there was nobody else in that conversation. Not one player.
IU was coming off of a bad stretch run in December, which had a lot of particulars to it, which we will talk about that as well. Cracked me up a tweet I sent out that just the fanboy fans just went nuts over. We'll talk about that. Plenty more to get to, but up next, the man, the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joins us. We'll talk to him and get his perspective, as he's having a great year in the broadcast booth. A lot more fun than it has been. So we'll hear from Don later on. Dustin Dopirak will join us as well. Don't forget, we're brought to you by our good friends from BB's Market, part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wild Club. Stop by BB's. It is your butcher, baker, no matter where you live. The best of custom meats around, most in-house made products. It's crazy good, full-size in-house bakery, and soon a steakhouse next door. We've got the man, Don Fischer, up next here on Indiana Sports Beat. Back with him right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether it's
Good morning, Don. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. The weather is incredible, and Indiana's on a hell of a run. Life is good right now.
Hey, Don, ask Jim how his morning coffee's going.
Oh, my God.
What's the matter?
Everything that was on my desk is now on my floor, and I had a lot of stuff on the desk. Do not sit at a desk with a load of coffee that does not have a lid on it. Not a good idea.
Well,
Never.
We all
Especially around the queue.
We all do stupid things. Trust me.
Well, I do them a lot more than the average person.
Well, I left my cell phone at Michigan. So.
Oh God! Did somebody find it?
Oh yeah, Zach Osterman's bringing it back to JD I guess today, or I don't know, maybe he got it there to him yesterday. I don't know, but I will have it this evening when I get back down to Bloomington to do the talk show. So,
wow, well, at least you got it. I was in Mexico City once for a week, and second day there, I think someone either picked my pocket and took it, and so I was a week in Mexico without a phone. If that was today, I would probably enjoy that, but it wasn't.
Well, the thing about the cell phone, and trust me, I haven't missed it all that much, to be honest about it, because I mean, I'm not like other people. I'm not an IT guy. In fact, I'm IT illiterate, and happy to say so. I just don't know how to do a lot of stuff on the phone, so I don't use it for a lot of different things other than to make phone calls or to text people or have them text me, that kind of thing. So it's not like I really, really need it, but I knew that there was a message on there. I'm supposed to do something for this Journey show or something on the Big Ten Network today.
Yeah.
And there's a guy supposed to meet me or call me and talk to me about it. Well, I knew that guy was supposed to contact me because he left me a message during the game on Saturday. So, and I saw it. If I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have contacted him, and then that guy wouldn't have known my office number and my home. So at any rate, the good news is I found out who the guy was and was able to make a phone call so I could set up a time that we're supposed to do the Journey thing. So, it is what it is.
30 seconds.
In Limestone, with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday. And you know what that means. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joins us. Don, it has been a good run for Indiana basketball, both men's and women's, to be honest with you. The women ranked number 2 in the country. The men continuing to rise up, whether you're talking about the net rankings, you're talking about the polls, but none of that matters because the eye test, they are rising in the eye test more and more every game. And it doesn't matter which side you're looking at, offense or defense. This weekend, it was defense without a question to me that made the difference. And it's because you didn't get a lot of offense from Miller Kopp, Trey Galloway, and those guys. But what they did not show up on the stat sheet. Miller Kopp probably largely responsible for shutting down Jet Howard in the second half. After 9 first-half points, he goes, I think, 1 for 6 in the second half. Trey Galloway doing a great job, especially closing out toward the end. I think he made a couple of steals, and this team gutted out a win against a team that was desperate because that probably ended Michigan's chances for making the tournament this year.
Very possibly that's the case. There's little question that Indiana, here's what I've gleaned out of this last week. Defense is the key. And we've always known that all the way through, but especially with this team, because offensively they can put points on the scoreboard, but when they're not scoring, defense travels, and defense is the difference maker. And in both these games this past week against Rutgers, earlier in the week, and then against Michigan this Saturday, the defense stepped up and they found a way to win ball games at the end, coming from behind in both of those contests. That to me is the most important thing that this team has, that you glean from this team right now. They figured out and they found ways to win ball games. If you are a good basketball program and you've got a program that is going to make any noise, it's at the defensive end of the floor that's the key, because we know they can score. I mean, there's no question about that. And your point about Miller Kopp, well, he did make a difference in the Rutgers ball game. He knocked down 18 points. He was a major factor in that ball game from a scoring perspective. But you're right. And Miller's defense this year, if you've watched him, he plays hard at the defensive end. He may not be the quickest or the most athletic guy in the court or the guy he's going up against, but he plays hard and he gets in their face. And I love that part about him because he is making a contribution aside from the fact that he's a great three-point shooter.
Don, we've talked about this in previous seasons. We talked about it during a stretch this season when we kind of questioned this team's toughness. And during this stretch where they've rattled off some big time wins, whether it be at home or on the road, the question has been about this team. What are you going to do? How are you going to respond when you get punched in the mouth? And you go back to Arizona, you go back to Kansas, even the first time they played Rutgers, they kind of rolled over. They had a chance to roll over against a Michigan team that was desperate, and they didn't. They had a chance to roll over when Purdue made a second half push, and they didn't. This team, I don't know what changed, but to me, for them to find their toughness, and right now when they're playing with that little bit of edge, and as you mentioned on the defensive end, they're playing as good as anybody in the country right now.
Well, and here's the other thing. They're playing without one of their best defensive players, and Xavier Johnson. So that's another factor to throw in there to make that as a positive for this basketball team, because they haven't had X since the Kansas ball game. And without him, you thought, well, that's going to be a real problem. And it was early on against Iowa, especially when Race went out in the second half of that ball game. And then you had the Northwestern, the Penn State debacles. And we're not saying that Indiana has to win those games or should win them. They should, but they didn't. In both of those instances. And they since that time, whatever the meeting that they had, I don't know if the players meeting had anything to do with it, but whatever Mike Woodson was telling those guys after those three losses, it's worked because they have changed their whole mentality. There are guys in almost every ball game, somebody different steps up and plays an important factor or is an important factor in those ball games. And I think that is such an important factor. And the good news is they're doing it through injury issues with other players. Geronimo was out for 4 ball games. He comes back on Saturday against Michigan and contributes as a starter and played 20-some minutes in that contest. I thought he did a nice job in there, considering that he hadn't practiced all that much of late. Race Thompson's out of that ball game, so you don't have him to rely on, and he's dealing with another injury of some kind. So you've got different people stepping up in every ball game that they're playing. And Hood Schifino gets in foul trouble in the first half against Michigan and sits out a good portion of the first half and doesn't do much offensively, and he turns the ball over a bunch of times. I think he had 5 turnovers in the first half and only 1 in the second half. But when he came back on the floor at the end of the first half and he didn't want to get a third personal foul, he scores 4 field goals that gives them back in the contest. They were down 11. He comes back in and he knocks down 4 field goals that puts them within 4 points at halftime. Somebody continues to step up in each one of these situations, and it's somebody different almost every time. And that's what you really got to like about this team.
That is what makes this team dangerous, and that is what makes this team. Bob Kravitz was on with us last week. He's on every Wednesday, but last week he said that he expects Indiana to go further in the tournament than Purdue. And, of course, that would just rile Purdue fans up, as you would imagine. But I agree, and it's simply because look at yesterday. It's all you have to do. Look at the Indiana game. The reason they lose, it's not because Zach Edey does any less than he normally does, but it's their ancillary players, especially having 2 freshman guards, while they are tremendous and are going to be outstanding. And they're good right now. But because they're freshmen, they are susceptible to games like they had against Indiana, like they had yesterday, where the pressure gets to them and they folded in the late minutes of that game. And I think that's what will happen when they get into stages of the NCAA tournament. It's just the youth. Indiana's fortunate they really don't have that except for Jalen Hood-Schifino, but he's a notch above. And Don, to me, his elevated play has been a big part of why Trace Jackson Davis is playing so explosively right now.
Well, Jackson Davis is the guy that has put this team on his back. There's no question about that, especially from an offensive perspective. But Jackson Davis is playing the best basketball of his career. This past week, he goes for 2,000 points, gets over 2,000 points and 1,000 rebounds, the first Indiana player to ever do that. He continues to climb the chart. He is 30 points away from surpassing Mike Woodson in the scoring column to become the fifth Indiana Hoosier in that position, and pass Mike Woodson and put him in the sixth spot, which is kind of cool in that sense. But he's put this team on his back, and I think his leadership has improved so much over the last 4 years. And he is truly the leader of this basketball team. And you watch him out there, he's the guy that's gathering them up and, at free throw time and all this kind of stuff when things are going on out there, talks to them, makes sure that they know what they're supposed to be doing. He's a critical factor, but Hood-Schifino is running this team as well from the point position. And the way Hood-Schifino goes sometimes is the way this team goes. But even when he's had his bad ball games where he hasn't scored as much or been a factor, Jackson Davis is the guy who's there every single time. And to me, you've got to have that kind of leader on your basketball team. And I used to bellyache about that through the Archie Miller years, that they never had that alpha male guy. They didn't have the guy that took charge and got in somebody's face and told him to shut up and listen to the coach or whatever the case may be. We just haven't had that kind of guy. And I think Trace has taken on that role this year, and I think it's been a huge factor.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask, and not to put you on the spot, Don, but the way I watch Trace Jackson Davis play, in my mind, like, it's been a long time. I can't even name a player off the top of my head who has played as well and who has commanded the respect of every other team as much. Is there a player that comes to mind when you've watched him over these last, 12 to 15 ball games in an Indiana uniform? Because we've seen it throughout the Big Ten, but it seems like it's been so long since Indiana's had that kind of guy that
Morgan?
Well, Juwan Morgan was a terrific leader too, but the last guy that put a team on his shoulders was Yogi Ferrell, in my opinion. I mean, I thought Yogi, his senior year, was absolutely spectacular in every role that he played, as a leader, as a scorer, as a defensive player. I thought Yogi was terrific, and that's why they won the 2016 Big Ten title. It was because of Yogi Ferrell and his leadership and the way that he kind of gathered his teammates around him. He was the true leader of that team. So he's the last guy to be that guy. We've had other guys like that through the years. I mean, Buckner was the leader, obviously, of the team in 76 and 75 and 76 for that matter. You could go to Joe Hillman was a guy in 1989 that played at 6'3" and 205 pounds, whatever it was that he weighed, absolutely willed that team to victories along with Jay Edwards and Lyndon Jones, that group. But that was a team that nobody thought was going to win the Big Ten championship that year. There were 5 teams ahead of them at one point in the standings that everybody thought were better than Indiana was. And Indiana ended up winning the Big Ten championship that year because Joe Hillman was just a tough, no-nonsense.
He's tougher than nails. He's tougher than nails. I can't believe he's from California because he is as tough and as versed in Indiana basketball history as anybody I know. He knows it from the bottom up. When you talk to him, it's not that he's spouting it out. He just exudes that. It's like he was transplanted here and had a transplant of whatever the Indiana basketball DNA is. It was shot into him because anytime he's with us, man, you can tell he just has that, and he's tougher than nails. Was tougher than nails.
Yeah, there's no question. And he was guarding 6'6", 6'8", 6'7" guys every game. He was a guard guarding forwards back in that 1989 season. And he did a phenomenal job. And because of that toughness that he showed, he became the leader of that team and was a guy that had no problem in telling guys to shut up, or you got to do this, you got to do that, whatever the case may be. And I think that's pretty much what we've seen out of Trayce Jackson-Davis, who is not only a leader, but he is taken on this team, and basically he is this leading scorer. He's the leading rebounder virtually every ball game that they play, and he's just been spectacular in that role. And his numbers are proving out how good and how valuable he is right now, because this team, had they not had Trayce Jackson-Davis, think about this season. It would have been.
Oh, yeah. And I hate to think back of what could have been for this season from a standpoint of the conference race. But with Northwestern knocking off Purdue, it's not opened the door for the conference championship, but it's put a crack in there. The door is not closed completely. And up next for Indiana, of course, is a trip to Evanston, where they lost last year amid the suspensions. But this is a team they lost to at home this year, and obviously is playing extraordinarily well, as now they're coming off a win over Purdue. I thought Indiana was going to win prior to them knocking off Purdue. Northwestern, that is. That makes it a little tougher, but I still think that Indiana can go there and win because of how they're playing. They play much better defense than, say, Purdue, and that is a huge difference. And I think that they're getting better contributions from people, even though in the scoring wise versus the other day it was Trayce Jackson-Davis and Jalen Echefino, but that's because I think those guys took the shots they needed to take. That was a game that they took what was brought to them. Indiana is like 300th in 3-point attempts, but they're like 16th in efficiency. So they're very particular and very efficient. I think that it's working out very well for them. I think they can win there, but obviously that is going to be a tough environment, Don.
No question. It's going to be a huge challenge, but this team right now is, I think they are actually, what's the word? They're embracing these opportunities and these challenges. And I mean, they knew that Michigan was going to be a challenge on Saturday, and Michigan was playing for their life as far as the NCAA tournament was concerned. And that was going to be a crucial game for them. And the first half, they came out with their hair on fire, and Indiana didn't do a great job. I thought Indiana's defense was terrific, especially in the second half. But the first half, it wasn't very good until real late. And when they finally got a few stops in the first half of the ball game. But the second half, they met every challenge that Michigan threw at them. And then holding them without a field goal the last 5 minutes, or without a point the last 5+ minutes, was just spectacular defensive play. And it's the only reason they won the ball game, because the offense wasn't there at the end of the contest.
No, they didn't score the last 2 or 3 minutes either. So, exactly. But yeah, the defense, man, oh man, the stops they kept getting, I was like, wow. And again, to do that on the road against a team that was desperate, because they had been making a run to make the tournament and were probably heading in the right direction. They were heading in the right direction of doing that. If they win that game, boy, that would have really changed their fortunes. Now I think they're out. Northwestern now looking at making just their second tournament ever, Don, which that's without a doubt going to happen. Just where they're going to be is going to be a question. But Indiana also looking to bump their seed prospects for the tournament, and they need this win from a quad one standpoint. It continues to add to their resume. Although it's going to be a tough one, it would be a spectacular win to add to their growing resume.
Well, right now, I think this team doesn't have to focus on anything but this game. And it's when Mike Woodson has been talking about this for 2 years now, because it's coach speak, and yet it's true. You only worry about the next one up. You can't worry about the next one after that or the next one after that. You can't worry about where you're playing them. You've got to take one game at a time. And I know it just sounds so cliche and you hate it, but it's the reality. It is the reality of the situation. And players cannot get ahead of themselves. If they do, that's when they get into trouble. So, look, this Northwestern team is going to be a huge challenge. There's no question about that. I'm almost glad that they beat Purdue, because I think if you watch that team celebrate that win on
big
Sunday,
emotional win. Yeah,
it was the same thing that I was concerned about after Indiana beat Purdue. What kind of a letdown are they going to have emotionally, or did they expend so much energy it's going to be a problem? And you just don't know about that. But we do know this: the place will be packed. There will be a lot of Indiana fans in the stands because there always are at Northwestern. There were a lot of Purdue fans in the stands yesterday at Northwestern. So those tickets are still being sold to other people. The Wildcat fans are still not there, but their student section has been awesome this year. And without question, it's going to be a challenge, and Indiana has to be ready for it. I think they will be. And especially now that Northwestern's tied with them for the Big Ten second place position. And let's face it, right now, what's everybody fighting for? They're fighting for one of those two buys in the Big Ten tournament. They don't want to play until Friday. And Indiana's one of those teams vying for one of those spots. And there's no question whether Indiana or whether Purdue falters at this point and loses a couple more times and makes it, maybe somebody can tie them for the Big Ten championship. We'll just have to wait and see. But you can't worry about that right now. You got to worry about the next man situation and who you're playing up. And that's going to be a tough challenge.
Yeah. Last night, I hate to say this, but the thought cropped into my mind that this might be the team that wins Indiana's first Big Ten tournament. Talk about that later. It's a long way down the road, but it's just something that crept into my mind last night. I'm like, I'm just getting this weird feeling about this team.
Put your face right in there.
I know. I'll let it go. It just came in and I'll let it go. But I'm like, we'll think about that. Hey,
but
make sure
you didn't let it go. You didn't let it go. You're talking about it today.
I'm just bringing it up. I'm just it's like talking about a dream you had. Hey, if you want to get more, have more of Don Fischer, you can do so tonight with head coach Mike Whitson of the Indiana basketball program, as they will be at Southern Stone Restaurant in Bloomington at Patterson and Rogers for Inside Indiana Basketball at 7:05. Terry Morin will not be there because they're playing tonight. But Mike Whitson and the man, Don Fischer, will be.
Looking forward to it, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
See
Don
you guys.
Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Can't wait. Back with more, brought to you by our good friends from Southern Stone right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
You all right, Dustin? Schutte?
This is fucking annoying is what it is.
Shit. He's had some minor technical issues this
I
morning.
get really pissed when I pay good money for shit and it doesn't fucking work. So,
Boy, he's letting it all out today.
Entirely fair. This is what the people who watch the full live stream get to really enjoy.
Yeah, they get the behind the scenes.
This is the uncensored.
unfiltered, worked till midnight, woke up at 6 a.m. Not that I'm complaining. I'm just saying I'm a little testy when this happens.
He already has a name, Dustin Dopirak.
Spicy Schutte.
Spicy Schutte. Spicy Schutte is back. I was thinking about Spicy Schutte last night and wondering where he had gone. He's back.
He's back.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Ranked teams that lost yesterday. Number 4, Arizona. Number 6, Tennessee. Number 11, Iowa State. Number 12, Kansas State. Number 17, TCU. Number 20, Providence. Number 21, UConn. Number 24, Rutgers.
Indiana has room to jump up to probably 11 or 12 in today's poll.
Wait,
I haven't.
Did Rutgers lose again over the weekend?
They did.
Yes.
Who did they play?
Was it Illinois, I believe?
Iowa?
Oh, yes. Yes. It was Illinois.
At Illinois.
I actually had, I remember that now. I actually watched that game, but I was also working, so I didn't register when you said that.
Didn't Tennessee lose twice this week?
Tennessee. Yeah, they lost to Vanderbilt, and then who'd they lose to?
Oh, God. Vanderbilt and Missouri.
Vanderbilt.
And Kentucky lost to Kentucky's probably not going to make the tournament.
Oh, Kentucky lost at home to Georgia.
Well, that was on the road, but they still lost.
Oh, it was? I thought it was at home. My bad.
The Fighting Mike Whites.
How's Dustin Dopirak doing?
He's good. Didn't work a lot this week. And
that's great.
It was nice. No, I covered the game Friday. Yesterday was Saturday was my wife's birthday, so I did not watch the Pacers game. And I think I'm better off for that. It was apparently rough.
Well, you know what?
Wizards shot 70% in the first half. 70%.
You know what? Hey,
that's insane.
I think the Pacers are fine. This is what everybody expected of them initially. They raised the damn bar, and so I'm like,
and then they dropped it, and then that's what's
yeah.
That's the thing that's notable is that they were playing so well, and they were a tough out for absolutely everybody.
And to me, that shows youth, though. Coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast, Market, and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to the Golf Club, high atop the 18th fairway, the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios, that is. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from RE/MAX Realty and Cheryl Sizemore. If you're in the Indianapolis area looking for a home, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. She's a huge supporter of Indiana Sports Beat and IU Athletics. Dustin Schutte, welcome him aboard from the Indy Star. How are you, sir?
You just welcome Dustin Schutte, who was already on. I'm Dustin.
Dustin Dopirak, rather.
You know it's happen sometimes.
See, I hate when we have the Dustins together. It drives me insane.
Want me to drop out?
It certainly entertains me. Anyway.
You have to understand, my brain is half mush. The other half is ADHD to the nth degree. So it's like, oh my God, what is going on in there? But Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joins us as usual. Relaxing weekend, I understand from you.
Yeah, it was the wife's birthday, so we went to
happy birthday! When was her birthday?
What's that? It was Saturday. She's 33.
See, she kind of gets screwed. She's got a birthday on Saturday. She's got Valentine's on. Either she gets screwed or you get screwed, but having to double up. One of the two.
I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to comment on that because I feel like that gets me in trouble. I feel like if I play into this line of thinking or discussion, that this is bad. This is bad for me, Jim. So I'm not following you down that.
All you have to say is, "Oh no! I treat I treat them differently and give them the respect that each and every one of them deserve."
I do. For the record, we do have dinner plans.
There you go.
So we're
there you go.
Don't worry about it. Not screwing us up.
There you go. Absolutely. That's like somebody who has a birthday like 2 or 3 days before or after Christmas. You know they're getting screwed. There's no way. He's like, oh man.
Little kids, it's tough. I imagine little kids got to be tough.
That's the worst. Yeah. Yeah. When you're growing up, you're like, where's my birthday?
It's like, wait a minute. There's no way I'm getting double presents for this. There's no way this is adequate. And I'm sure it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Pacers we were talking about this in the break. You know, they're not playing well right now. Last I saw, they lost 14 out of 16, but which is what was expected at the start of the season. And then they raised the bar by playing out of their minds and playing so well. And then now I'm like, don't be disappointed. This is what you expected. They played well. So I think the youth is showing up. Injuries are showing up. And that's still fine because actually they're helping themselves. Maybe.
Yeah, no way. I mean, the tough part is the interesting part about what that's done, and you're not going to know for several years whether it was good. Was that they pretty much stood pat at the deadline. Coming into this season, the expectation was they were going to be bad and they were going to not re-sign Miles Turner. They were going to trade him at the deadline. They were probably going to trade Buddy Hield at the deadline. They were going to package that, try to get some more draft picks, maybe get a young player or something like that. And what they ended up doing, and according to Kevin Pritchard, obviously we talked to him on Friday night before the game. He said, we took some big swings. We made some big offers for some players we wanted. By all accounts, at least one of those was OG Anunoby. And it was rumored that they put 3 draft picks on the table for him. Didn't end up getting him. Obviously, ended up getting Jordan Nwora and George Hill as part of the four.
It would have been nice.
Yeah,
that would have been big.
Yeah, if they would have picked OG up, that would have been a major deal. But they obviously they keep everybody together, and so they are sort of committing to this core, and they're going to add players through the draft, and obviously the one thing that's happening is obviously that their first round pick. They've got 3 first round picks. 2 of them are tied though to Cleveland and Boston, so they're going to be bottom 10 picks in the first round. But their pick is, the Pacers pick themselves is moving up, and right now they would pick 6th. And that's right where they got Benedict Mathurin last year. So they're in a place where they are looking at a pretty high lottery pick, and so if it keeps going in that direction, they have a chance to get another great player. Now I don't know that there's going to be anybody that's as seasoned, well-schooled as Mathurin was when they got him. Obviously because he put in 2 years and really got better in both of those 2 years. It seems like there's a lot of sort of G League. The Thompson twins are in there. Brandon Miller's in there. Once you get past Wembanyama and Henderson, it's sort of, it seems like it's all kind of shook up as terms of what else you can get or should take at that point going forward. But you can get a great player at 6 if they get 6, and obviously you get some ping pong ball, so you're not out of the Wembanyama deal, even though you're not going to get the most because it doesn't seem like the Rockets or Spurs have any interest in winning basketball games. But you're at least in the ballpark there. You have a chance. So that's kind of where they are or where they're going. I mean, I don't think the question that has to be answered is, are you really better off with this core? Should you have gotten rid of somebody and tried to turn that into more assets down the road? Should you be sort of committed to this group? Should you commit the money that you have to this group? And that's an interesting question. And again, something won't necessarily be answered. I mean, they'll have time in the offseason to try to package some things together to make a bigger deal. Kevin Pritchard still seems interested in being aggressive and acquiring more players, more young players that fit with this group. So we'll see where that goes long term, and what ends up being better off. Would they have been better off if they were tanking from the beginning? I think is really sort of an interesting question. And you don't know that. I mean, I think there are good things that have happened, that they have guys that played well, established themselves, and proven that they can be part of a winning team. Guys like Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith stepping up and playing well enough for the franchise to decide, hey, we like you and we want you to be a part of this. Will that be good long term or not? That I think is going to be interesting. But I mean, the most important thing that happened to Halliburton obviously established himself as an all-star, a guy that other people want to play with. That's I think the most important development of the year. So ultimately, yes, they are really kind of on par with where we thought they were going after a long time when they were way ahead of schedule.
So one of the things that's kind of interesting to me, I guess, is you look at how the Pacers started this season, and they were probably not the best team, but they were one of the most fun teams in the NBA to watch, just because they were never out of a game. They could get down 20 points and get back into it. I feel like some of that is because of their youth, but also because this is a new team. This was a new group. Like, they played together a little bit at the end of last season, but other teams didn't really know how to game plan for them. You threw Benedict Mathurin in there. You had some other pieces that you're adding to that puzzle. Have the recent struggles, what is it, 16 out of 18 now? I've lost track.
15 out of 17.
15 out of 17. Okay, so 15 out of 17. Is it like, do teams just know what to expect from Indiana now? Like, is there a large enough sample size and now they're better able to defend it or attack it on the offensive end? Because to me, I understand the Halliburton injury obviously played a huge role. So sure. At the same time, since his return, this team, it just doesn't seem to have the same sort of firepower. And I don't know if that's because Halliburton's not 100%, if the chemistry is still off with him getting back into the rotation, or if teams know what to expect from Indiana on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, it's all. I think it's all of the above. I mean, I think he's close to 100% from a fit, just feeling good physically standpoint. He got the elbow brace off last week, and really the knee was never a thing. I think it's an odd injury to discuss because it kept him out for a really long time. But it's not one of those that seems like all that debilitating for him. I think it did cause an issue with the shot. I think that was definitely a thing. Is that he was having a hard time shooting the ball well because he's got this. He called it a big ass JJ Watt brace, and I got a kick out of that when he said that. He was like, I can't wait to get this thing off, and I do think it affected him because he's got that big weird motion to start with, you know, and so getting that right, adding another hitch into it than is already there. Could not have helped his cause. He just wasn't hitting a lot of threes. He was hitting a couple, but not a bunch. And so I think that made an impact. It was like almost like sort of taking something, just weaponry out of his arsenal, And we even told us, we talked to him Monday night. He's like, man, I've been terrible. And Halliburton is that kind of honest that he'll just say that, like what's been up lately. So man, I've been bad. And I think he's still, I think, finding a rhythm more than anything else. I mean, physically, I think there was something that he had to get over, and his numbers aren't terrible. He's scoring and getting assists and stuff like that, but I don't think he feels like he's totally got everything clicking. And, they are defending him well. They are putting multiple bodies on him, and he's the first scout, and every team looks at it as like, what do we got to take away that Tyrese does? Because ultimately he's the guy that's taking, that drives this train. What do we got to do to keep him out from getting to what he wants to do, from getting in his passing lanes, just taking away his shots, not letting him drive easy, and they're doing all those things. They're bringing multiple bodies. They're setting their switches right, basically, so that they're, they've got cross matchups in a way that, like, okay, if he's calling for a ball screen from the 5, who do we want to switch on to him at that point? And they're doing a really good job of that. And it's like everybody else is game plannable, like he's got all this options. So like once you have really decided what you want to do on Tyrese, and if you know what that is and you execute that well, you can take away most of the other things. Buddy Hield can create his own, he can, but if you have a good defender on Buddy, you can take him out. If you got a good center, you can at least slow Miles Turner down. And Miles has played really well. Throughout this process, Miles has played really well. And the thing about it is they got to score 120 points tonight. Like if you're playing the Pacers, you got to say, well, we can drop 120 on them. So they can drop 120 on us. And so we don't have to shut them down. We don't have to hold them under 100. We just have to hold them under 120 because we're going to get ours. And that's the issue. And that's the tough thing is like they, as good as Naismith and Nembhard are as defenders, having Naismith on the floor, cost them in the rebounding game. That's an issue. They haven't defended well collectively in a long time. And because I got to watch the Wizards tape today at some point to see just what happened there. But 70% over a half is crazy. As much as like people say, well, nobody defends in the NBA. Yes, they do. These teams are just that good. But even teams that are that good don't shoot 70% from the floor. That's nuts. So like they got serious defensive issues, and they've got a lot they have to fix to get right. Because I do think they still want to win some basketball games this year.
Absolutely. The Pacers, hopefully they just get where they want to get to, and man, that OG thing, still that's going to hurt. But we'll see where they end up. We got to take a break. When we come back, we got to talk a little bit more about Indiana, what their prospects could be, just all kinds of good stuff. We're joined by Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, and we'll back with more Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our good friends from Barber Pop Real Estate Services. For those of you down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana, Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Madison, Jefferson County areas, looking for a home, no one can get you in their home quicker, faster, with less hassle than Barber Pop Real Estate Services. They've served those communities for 3 decades. Reach out to Barbara at barberpop.com or our friend Matt Lincoln, Matt at barberpop.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore.
I'm going to Urban Meyer this headset.
You should. Andy Katz is the most Big Ten homer guy that there is. He's currently has. There. Oh, he's been there. He was all over stroking Archie when Archie was here, and I'm like, okay, that sells it right there for me. You're a sellout. But
it's harsh. It's harsh.
Oh, it's total. He's a total. I mean, he's a total sellout for what he does, and I'm like, I have a problem with that. With when you're supposed to be in his position in the media. When there are certain positions in the media where I think that's fine, but there's other ones where I don't. And his is one that I don't think that's okay to be so pro. He's got Indiana number 5 in the March Madness rankings. I mean, come on.
Who is paying him right now?
I think the Big Ten pays him, number 1, and the NCAA pays him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't. It's so weird with guys at that level. It really is. You know, like it's just a strange universe, and it's just like it's almost like because you think when you're coming up in this business and when you're a kid and everything that you want to be the biggest name. Like the biggest names are in some weird spots, man. Like they really are. Like there is so much horse trading that goes on at a certain level that like you don't know who you work for anymore. You know, it's just what it seems like. I mean, like it's bizarre. And obviously Andy was at ESPN for a long time and lost that, you know, like was part of the, you know, I think it was part of the big layoffs there, if I'm not mistaken. And so
he was.
Yeah. And so now you're in a weird spot. And it's like, okay, all the people who owe you or you know, are like you or whatever, are on the teams. And that's a weird place to be, you know, like, I mean, because Andy was a really, really, really good journalist. You know, I mean, didn't Andy bring down Fresno State, like with Tark and stuff? I mean, like, you know, I mean, Andy's good at what he does. Like, I'm not trying to like.
That's my point. That's my point. He's so good at being that, but now when you do this, it's like, come on, man. You know better than that. He dropped Arizona from 7 to 26.
Jeez,
come on. I don't care I don't care if Arizona would have lost to Grand Canyon.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not the 26th worst team in the freaking. They're still going to be a top. They're still.
Yeah. Bello and Tabellos and Kerr. I don't care what you have. Like they can beat you.
John, I was able to connect to my hotspot. I'm gonna try this on the laptop because I'm almost
okay. That's fine. All right, here we go. 10 seconds, guys.
Meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always, Dustin Schutte, and we're joined by Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Great weekend for basketball, for sports, Dustin. It was awesome. The college basketball games were awesome. Indiana with a gigantic win at Michigan. Gigantic because Michigan was a very desperate, good but desperate team, and they were at home. And Indiana won that game with grit, determination, and straight up in your face defense.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. I just rewatched. I watched the last 3 minutes right before I jumped on here just to get a sense of what happened. I didn't realize when the last time was that Michigan had scored. I think the last 5-12, no points for Michigan. I mean, that's incredible. And obviously for a lot of the season, that was an issue for Indiana, is not being the defensive team that they were a year ago. And you certainly could see it in this one that they have just so much found themselves on the defensive end. I mean, like they gave up, I think, 2 field goals in the last 10 minutes of that game. I mean, that's nuts. That is wild. That is phenomenal defense. And just the key possessions when they had to have a stop. You see so many little things that they did well. I mean, obviously at the end, It's Miller Kopp. It's not supposed to be Miller Kopp that's your lock that locks somebody down and forces somebody to just throw up trash at the end of the game. Like, that's not supposed to be Miller Kopp's deal, and he did it.
It was a guy that was killing them in the first half too.
Yeah, Jet Howard. I mean, Jet Howard's going to be an NBA player, and obviously it's a 10-second deal where you only have to defend for a little while. Maxine has thoughts, but anyway, Miller Kopp stands up, makes a play. Just Trace Jackson Davis gets switched out on the perimeter, does a pretty good job of making that not be a problem in a few different cases. Trey Galloway doing a good job, I guess doubling down, but sort of like just coming underneath Hunter Dickinson and waiting for that pass that he just swings in and picks off. There was just so many things they did well defensively down the stretch of that game. And it's so much growth and they don't even necessarily have, what you would say are their best defensive guys out there. Race Thompson's not healthy. Jordan Geronimo was not on the floor down the stretch. And it's not all this group of lockdown guys that you were sort of expecting to be great defenders for this team. It's just a good team outing. And Trace obviously had the one where he got up to the tip of the window, and maybe that's a goaltend, maybe it isn't, but it's impressive either way. And so, yeah, I mean, there are just so many things they did well on defense to lock that game up. And I think Zach wrote it that it's a game Indiana usually loses. I mean, they don't usually go on that kind of because they had their own offensive drought. They don't win a lot of games where they don't score in the last 2 minutes and win.
Well, not a lot of teams don't.
A lot of teams don't. And but Indiana's left a lot of those games on the board, especially on the road. Those are hard games for them to win. It's again hard place for anybody to win. Michigan's a tougher spot, I think, than a lot of people give it credit for, as far as intimidation factor, and it gets loud in there and everything like that. Like, it's not you don't put it up there with Breslin and Cole and everything like that, but Michigan's a tough place to win, and they got it done just with a lot of grit. I mean, they've proven that they can win games a bunch of different ways, and again, this team has just transformed really over the past month. It is a different basketball team. It got its mind right somewhere in there, and now it can beat just about anybody it wants to beat. I mean, I still don't put them in the Final Four discussion or whatever. I feel like there are better teams, but I also don't think that there's a great team in college basketball this year. I think there's some really, really good ones, but I don't think there's anybody that you look at and say, well, there's just no chance that Indiana could beat them on a given night. And they're a different basketball team, and they're playing just really tough, smart, inspired basketball right now.
Well, to me, I just think it comes back to team chemistry. And I talked about this earlier in the season when they were dealing with all those injuries. And I don't want to say I wrote them off, but I thought when they started 1-4, this team's got to find some sort of identity. And I don't know if it was, we talked with Don Fischer earlier, talked about the players only meeting, whether it was something Mike Woodson said, whether it was the players only meeting. This team has found an identity. They've decided that they're going to be locked in defensively pretty much every night. I mean, I think after they gave up 80 points in what seemed like 12 straight games, I know that wasn't the case. But to me, it just, when you have some guys that are in and out of the rotation, you have your best defender and one of your top guards out with Xavier Johnson. You had the injury to Race Thompson, and you dealt with TJD. Like, I just feel like it took time for this team to gel. And now that they're gelling, you're starting to see it can be one guy's night on Tuesday. It can be a different guy's night on Saturday. Then the next Wednesday, it's going to be a third guy's night. So it's just when you have different guys stepping up, when you have TJD doing what he's doing, putting the team on his back and willing these guys to victory every single night. Like, it's just, I'm just impressed that they were able to locate an identity and stick with it through these past 8 games, 7 of their last 8. I still don't have access to the stuff I need. So 7 of the last 8, I think they've won now. I mean, just transformation is a great word, because we've seen teams do this in the past, but I don't think anybody expected the way Indiana started the Big Ten season for them to be playing as well as they are right now.
Yeah, it was like they flipped a switch as far as intensity was concerned. I think that's a really, really big thing. It's like the games that they were losing, like they just seemed lost, and you see that sometimes with like they just seemed lost, like they just didn't have a sense of what they were doing. And there were guys you know, like, and we said this a bunch at the time. I know I said this a lot of the time. Like, even when Race Thompson goes down, you're like, okay, well, you've got Jordan Geronimo and Malik Renew. There's no, like, you know, I get it. Like, Race Thompson is one of your, you know, he's your veteran. He's your 6-year guy. He's come up with so many big plays in his career. He does everything for you. But, like, Jordan Geronimo is immensely talented. Malik Renew is really talented. And so that shouldn't kill you, you know, that shouldn't kill you. Like, and, you know, yeah, Xavier Johnson hurts, obviously, because now you only have one point guard, but he's a 5-star point guard, you know, like, for as much as, like, yes, that's a loss. That's a significant loss. But, like, it was an awkward deal having to play both of them in the first place. Like, you had to kind of find this sort of funky chemistry to make 2 point guards work at the same time. And, you know, like, yes, it's going to be adjustment, but, like, you have a 5-star guard playing his position, and there are like 2 or 3 other guys at the 2 and 3 that you can play, that you know, that are perfectly capable of being out there. Tamar Bates and Drake Galloway, and you know, those guys, and, you know, like, even digging up for CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks. Those are talented freshmen. There are people you can get minutes, and it just seemed like the biggest thing they did is they decided they were going to guard. You know, and they decided, like, okay, like, we're going to really get after it. And I think there was a practice where I think Woodson just went after them and said, like, this is how hard you guys got to play. Like, we can't fade into this. You know, we can't do this thing where we're, like, relaxing and not going at it all the time. Like, we're not beating anybody if we're not really, really defending hard. And since then, they're a different basketball team. It's like they very much absorbed that lesson quickly and applied it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that happened is they just sort of, you know, decided, okay, we're really going to defend and get after it. And I think Trace being, you know, Trace looks healthier. I mean, like Trace looks fine right now. And that's an issue, is that there was, well, like,
Maxine disagrees.
That's right.
She disagrees with something. But there was a while just Trace didn't look healthy, and that was an issue, you know, where he was definitely grinding it out every night. And there's not been a day where he didn't play hard, but there were definitely games where that back was screaming at him, and you could tell. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was a part of it. There was just there's no doubt there is a what I call a line of demarcation. There was a line of demarcation, and I put out a tweet the other day, and I just enjoyed watching the fanboy people go nuts over it, because I didn't say anything or make any comment. I just put numbers out, and people went crazy. It was during that time also, and I call it the letter, was received and posted, which it is not kosher to send letters to student athletes like that. Let's get that out of the way. First of all, no, I'm not supporting that. It's dumb. It's just dumb. And if I need to say that, I don't know that I don't have much more for you. I shouldn't have to say that. It's already dumb. You're an adult. You should know that. But I use the word
there. I think I knew him from a previous life. You know, I think, I mean, from a, I believe he was a Hoosier Scoop poster way back in the day.
Well, first of all, the fact that you do that tells you a little bit about somebody. And and so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give the guy a break, because I don't know what is going on in his life. So
yeah, I don't know what's up with that guy. That's a thing. So that has to be, yeah.
That's why I didn't name anybody, because it had nothing to do with a person. It had nothing to do with a letter. But there was a line of demarcation. And I think that it was a coagulation of many things, but including was frustration of not playing well. And, you know, of course the injuries were there and all of that, and they were dealing with, and that's part of dealing with all of that and being frustrated, not being able to play as well as you'd like to, but they also were not playing tough. The whole team was not playing tough. And if you don't believe me, why don't you go back and look at the pressers from Mike Woodson, from the team themselves, because they all said it. So people need to stop getting all bent out of shape when it's pointed out in one way. Forget that. It's a point of, there was just a line of demarcation made by Trace, I think, when he posted the letter, it doesn't have anything to do with the letter. Forget about the letter. The letter is a coagulation to me of all the stuff, of all the injuries, of all the chatter, of all the talk, of all the coaches getting up their butts. And then they had a team meeting. Well, why do you think they had a team meeting? Because things were not going right. No. So then, since that line of demarcation, my God, the production is off the charts. The production for Trace Jackson Davis has jumped 10 points a game. 10 points a game. His first 10 games, he averaged 16 points a game. The 11 games immediately after, in between that period, that, I don't know, the line of demarcation, I'm going to call it. It's 26 points a game. I mean, we're talking a radical difference. Yes, the injuries helped, getting over that helped, but this team has played much better. This team has played better defense. Miller Kopp has, I think, also taken grief. I'm giving him grief because he deserved grief, but now he deserves lots of praise. He's busting his ass, and I'm going to give him the praise for busting his ass. He's been playing great. He played his defense was a big part of the reason they won at Michigan. His defense is a reason that is part of the reason why Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis can play so well together. Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis playing well together is another reason why. There are so many reasons, but it all centered from that. There was a center port where it exploded and went the other direction.
Right. No, it's just there was a decision made that they could not, they couldn't win the way they were playing. That they had to be better. They had to be tougher. They had to play with more intensity, and it wasn't there. And there were really good players, really talented players who were giving them nothing, from a production standpoint that have, stepped up in some way, shape, or form. And again, their best player took it up another level, and a big part of it is just because he feels physically better. I don't think there's been a time where Trace wasn't giving you everything he had. Maybe you guys got that impression. I didn't. I didn't see a time when I was, watching them, and I obviously haven't watched every game because I've been watching the Pacers. But the games I've seen, I haven't seen Trace dog it, this year at any point. But it seems to me like a weight was lifted off of him, and that might be in a physical sense, like there is less pressure going on in his back, and that means he can move and he can jump and he can run. And it's just different. I think that the difference I think for Trace is physical. The difference for a lot of the other guys is mental. At least that's my read. And I like there's the mental ease that comes with being able to do with what your body wants to do. That obviously that's a part of it. But I think the biggest difference in Trace is, his back's fine and now he can play. And I think that was a big issue. It's just that guy just was not healthy at all. For a while, even though he could play on whatever he had, he just wasn't the same guy.
Well, and I feel like on the defensive end, to that point, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to properly explain what I mean, but I'll do my best here. And because I think a lot of the adjustments have come on the defensive end, we've talked about this. I feel like maybe now that he's healthy, or at least looks like he's as close to 100% as we've seen, seems like in a while, if a guy gets beat, he knows they've got Trace Jackson Davis in the paint. They know they've got a great defender, a shot blocker, a rim protector, basically. And I feel like they're more comfortable now where they don't have to do nearly as much defensively because they know they've got better help back there. And I don't know if that was the case, but that's, to me, on the defensive end, that's got to be one of the explanations as to why they're playing better defensively, because when he's at full strength, he can cover a lot of ground. Whereas in the past, if a guy gets beat, somebody's going to knock down a pull-up jump shot because he just didn't have the ability to alter shots, to block shots, to rebound the way he did because of those back issues. So I agree with you in the physical sense, but I think just the mentality of knowing you've got somebody back there there's not as, I don't know. I just feel like everybody else has had a weight lifted off them because they don't have to do as much because Trace Jackson Davis is going to have them covered.
Oh yeah, no, that's 100% too. I mean, when a guy can get up to the top of the window and block a shot, there is so much more capacity there. It's just like, okay, like, I mean, he erases shots right now. I mean, like he has just swallowed some up in the second half of this year. And he was doing that really well last year. And so it's not like it's a skill that he didn't have, but it's just like, it is not as possible. It's not as, like it requires a lot of your body to get up really, really, really high like that. And when you got back trouble, it's hard, it's difficult. And so he's finally in a place where he can do it. And so that allows, again, it does allow everybody to be more confident. You can get up into somebody, and if you make a wrong step and they beat you, well, that guy can, get up and swat away whatever you have. And so Trace being a different defender makes everybody else a different defender. That's for sure.
Absolutely. He affects the game in a different way. And Jalen Hood-Schifino's growth has been phenomenal. Next time we'll talk about what happens when Xavier comes back, because that is going to be very interesting because of how this team has morphed into where they are right now. And they have gelled into something. So lots to get to. What's up next for you, man?
They play the Jazz tonight and the Bulls on Wednesday, and then it's All-Star Weekend. I'm not going, but we'll be covering that. Be pretty sweet. But the Pacers will be well represented throughout the weekend, not just with Tyrese in the All-Star game on Sunday, but Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard are playing in the Rising Stars game. And it was reported, Scotty Adams reported it. I don't think we've confirmed it yet, but I think Buddy Hield is going to be in the three-point contest on Saturday, as he should be, because he's leading the league in threes. So you would think that'll get you an invite to the three-point shooting contest, is hitting more than anybody else. So there's a good chance that all those guys are going to be a part of it. And so the Pacers get a chance to show out, even though they're losing a lot of basketball games right now. They're at least going to be able to put some things on display in Utah over the weekend.
Looking forward to it, man. Make sure you give our buddy a follow, Dustin Dopirak. He is with the Indy Star, of course. You know that already. And look forward to talking to you next week, brother.
Sounds good.
Later and Maxine. And Maxine.
Of course, she'll have thoughts. Maxine. She has thoughts every single minute.
Hey, we'd be disappointed without them.
If not, exactly. Maxine has thoughts, things she'd like to discuss every Monday. So she has.
We could turn it into
thoughts too. She has thoughts on the commercials. Like you could get her going all day.
Oh, we haven't talked about that. We could create a segment for her.
We should.
Maxine's morsels or something like that.
Oh, there you go. I like it.
The last thing I'll say is I've done my share of bad things, and I've also done your share of bad things. It was my favorite commercial line. Aussie was great. All right. See you guys.
Have a great one. Dustin Dopirak joining us from the Indy Star. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle and Dustin Schutte. We've got more coming up, more basketball to talk about. We didn't talk about the commercials yet. My favorite commercial, easily, I can say.
Don't reveal it.
Question.
Don't wait.
I'm not going to. When we come back. Good point. Hey, we're brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Endeavor serves Metalworks Brewing beers in all of their restaurants. Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art, alongside a desire to be actively involved in the community. Make sure you stop by. You can go right to the source. Metalworks Brewing, located on 6th Street, right off of the square in Bloomington when you're in town. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for
Internet should be back at 12:45.
You sound better right now.
Well, I was able, for whatever reason, for an hour, it wouldn't let me connect to my hotspot. And then it finally popped up. So I was like, I'm making the switch. And I actually do think the sound could, because I have this cord that I plug in. So I think the sound does travel through my laptop instead of just the headphones when I.
There we go.
Well, it sounds perfect.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Oh, I know what my favorite commercial was. I don't know if it's the same as yours though.
These assholes had
I'll tell you one thing I wish they would stop doing, but I know it pulls on the heartstrings. Stop showing dog commercials. Good God.
I was just going to say, I watch about half the Super Bowl because I'm working and writing and I can't do two things at once. So I missed half the Super Bowl. Also, did not watch any commercials. So I don't even know, other than the U2 balloon thing.
I missed that one.
That was near the end. Other than that, I did not really see a commercial. So I'm interested to see what you guys think is the best commercial from the Super Bowl, because I don't have an opinion. Is this a short segment, John?
Yeah, this will be shorter, and then
okay. I gotta check out after this.
This will be shorter.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I liked how that farmer's dog commercial, everybody thought the dog was going to die. So they were
then they did another dog commercial. It was with Amazon, and they brought the crate in, and it ended up being a second dog, and people thought there was going to be a commercial about locking your dog up.
I didn't remember. I didn't see that one apparently. Huh. How about that?
I'm not a fan of pet commercials in any capacity, because all it does is
I don't either. I'm like, I'm going to change. Do you remember? What are we coming back?
Yeah, we got 30 seconds.
Do you remember when they did like that?
Do you remember
when that commercial with that guy whose wife died? Oh, that was brutal.
The guy whose died?
His wife died, and like they got a picture frame of he and his wife. Oh.
I think I remember, but I don't not the details. But it's not a big deal.
I should have went and got coffee. I haven't had any.
All right, here we go, folks.
Hops is Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Monday. Welcome in. I hope you had a great weekend, ready to get your week started. Hope we can get it started off on the right way. The weather is going to be fantastic, depending on where you live, of course. 68 degrees here on Wednesday expected. 68. Woo! It's February, folks.
Heat wave.
What was your favorite commercial in the Super Bowl, people? Throw it up there. I have mine without question, but there was a couple that I'm like, wow, these are good commercials. One was really confusing, and I look forward to talking about it. But all right, so my favorite, I don't know what, I'm going to have to look up actually what it was, the favorite advertising. That's a problem. That's the only problem.
Sometimes that is the case. We're going to have to I think we need JTP in on this conversation.
Because it was new, because it was a new product, I think, number one.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I got to explain. I don't have a favorite commercial because when I work during the Super Bowl, I watch about half the game I get to see. I'm writing, doing other things, listening. So during those commercials, I'm not paying one lick of attention. All I saw was the farmer's dog commercial and the U2 spy balloon commercial. So I don't have I have no idea what a favorite commercial was. I don't know what 98% of them were. So I'm interested to hear what you and JTP, and then I can go maybe watch them on YouTube and see if I agree or disagree.
I'm going to have to do that as well because I didn't see nearly all of them. I did happen to catch a couple of great ones though. And all right, I'll tell you my second place was that I saw, and I didn't, like I said, obviously there's a lot I didn't see, so I'm going to have to go back and watch. But number two was the Blue Moon Miller Lite Coors Light commercial.
Okay.
They had a commercial for all three of them together. And it was funny because it starts out as kind of like one of the old Miller Lite commercials, but then it's like, it's a Miller Lite commercial. No, it's a Coors Light, where they were kind of like fighting for commercial space during the commercial. And they're two different companies, obviously. This is a Coors Light commercial. It's a Miller Lite commercial. And at the very end, they put up a bottle of Blue Moon and says, well, it's actually a Blue Moon commercial. Which I'm like,
that one.
I'm like, okay, that's kind of like, it's kind of creative, kind of funny, but it was not my favorite. And
let me give my second favorite, and then we'll give our favorites. My second favorite one, it was kind of an all-star type of celebrity commercial. It had a bunch of had Paul Stanley from Kiss, Ozzy Osbourne.
That was okay,
Billy
but
Idol.
they all had second-rate guys, man.
But it was funny though. It's about Ozzy Osbourne. Anytime Ozzy's in a commercial,
Ozzy was funny. Yeah, because the line he used, Dustin Schutte just used the line he used in that commercial. I've done enough bad things. What do you say? I've done enough bad things for myself, and I've done enough bad things for you. Something like that.
Oh, Dustin Dopirak, yes.
That's right. Dustin did just say that, didn't he?
You got us mixed up again. I was like,
that was a commercial for Workday, by the way, which is kind of odd. But...
Oh, I did see the Dave Grohl. I was a fan of
that was good too.
I do like Dave Grohl. Yep, big fan of him.
I liked it, except it was so pro-Canada. It was like, man, he said they invented basketball and football.
I know.
I'm like,
well,
what?
I feel like that's part of the joke, though.
Yeah. All right, Jim, what's your favorite commercial?
My favorite commercial was, I don't know who there was actually for, something called Poppers, maybe.
Oh, it was like a popcorn
Popcorners,
thing,
right? Popcorners. That's what it is.
That was a good one. I can't remember what made that funny though. That was a good one.
I'll tell you what made it funny, because it starts out with Jesse Pinkman pulling up one of those chips off of the tray like it was meth, like they used to break the meth.
Oh, yeah, it was Breaking Bad. That's right.
Yes, it was all Breaking Bad. They're in the motorhome. They're in the motorhome, like as in from the very, very beginning. And then Walter White's sitting there, and they use almost some of the dialogue. Mr. White, this is great. He's like, Jesse, it's just simple ingredients. Jesse, we don't eat our own product. Mr. White, everyone's going to want a taste of this. And then they go out, and I cannot remember. Oh God, what was his name on his character name on there? I'll find it here again. Daggone it. Tuco Salamanca. You remember Tuco? If you didn't watch Breaking Bad, first of all, you've missed out, and you have no idea what this conversation's about. But that commercial was my absolute favorite, because then after Jesse Pinkman says, everyone's going to want a taste of these, they go outside, and then Tuco's there, and he snatches the bag out of their hands and eats them and says something like Tuco would say. And he goes, and Jesse says, we got 6 flavors. And he's like, you make 7 flavors. Because it's just, if you're a fan of Breaking Bad, you would have absolutely loved that commercial. I thought it was freaking funny. It was creative, and I loved it.
That was great. That's probably in my top 5 as well, if I had to make a top 5. My number 1 was Binky Dad. Remember Binky Dad from last night? It was some sort of car commercial, but the dad had forgotten the kid's pacifier, and it shows him going on the journey all the way back to their house to get the kid's binky. And there's just a bunch of crazy stuff of people cheering him on and a bunch of silly things like that, like a news report of where he's at on his journey going back to get the binky. I thought it was pretty funny.
Getting back to basketball, Indiana now. No, I mean, that's it. Yeah, it was fun.
We can hit our last break so Mr. Schutte can
well, I was just going to say, my Breaking Bad take is I watched about half a season of it, and this is a Breaking Bad take. Get it? Anyway,
here you go again with this.
I just watched I watched half a season. It's too dark for me, man. I can't do it.
Well, you got out good then, because if you think the first half season's dark, There's 4.5 more, and that show.
I know.
Just slowly, always
That's
trends upward in great. It was, dude. You're doing yourself a disservice.
I probably am, but
it's a great show.
I just cannot get it. If I watch something like that, man, it affects my mood. I don't want to binge that stuff. So I don't watch a lot of TV as it is. Like I watch a lot of movies, watch a lot of sports, but in terms of television programs, and that's not one that I'm going to spend my time on because I can't. That was tough. Just maybe I made it through the first full season. I don't remember. I just remember thinking once I got to a stopping point, I'm like, I'm not going to do this to myself anymore. But it was good in terms of the production, the storyline. It's just not for me.
Well, I guess not everybody likes it, and there's everybody has different tastes for different things.
That's right.
No doubt about that. I hate to see you go.
I'll be back tomorrow.
I know, but it's always parting is such sweet sorrow.
I know.
We've got to take a break, though, and we've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat for you. Dustin Schutte's gone for the day, but he'll be back tomorrow. Or Dustin Dopirak, Dustin Schutte. I can't wait to not have two Dustins. I can't wait till we don't have any two Dustins on the show again tomorrow. That'll be wonderful. But we've got lots more coming up. Brought to you by, of course, our friends at Courtroom Sports Grill down in Bedford. Great place to go catch the games. What a great Cajun cuisine. All fresh-made, handmade food. Dustin, have a great one, buddy.
You too.
We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right. I've got plenty of clips. We don't have to use them if you don't want to, but
well,
got one from everybody. Mike Woodson, Trace Jackson Davis, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Juwan Howard, Hunter Dickinson.
We're definitely going to use them. We don't have to use them today. We've got today, tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine. Talk about whatever you want to. Yeah, do whatever you want to do. Mahomes. So he's quickly going to become the
always
next.
Good.
I'm not talking about in terms of talent, but in terms of annoyance, he's going to be the next Tom Brady, 100%.
No,
the key word there is annoyance, not talent. He's not going to be the next greatest of all time. He's going to be the quarterback that nobody wants to see in the Super Bowl every year because he's just too good. That's what he's going to be.
I don't think that's going to happen. Well, we'll see. There's too many young quarterbacks now. Jalen Hurts. Oh my God. That just show dude.
He's the only current starting quarterback in the NFL with more than one Super Bowl win. He has more than Aaron Rodgers, which is crazy.
Oh, you're talking about
Mahomes.
Mahomes. Yeah. And how long has he been in the league now?
That's a good question. Let me see. I don't know for sure.
Under 5 years? Yeah, he's under 5.
5 years, I think.
So both quarterbacks in the Super Bowl are in the league for less than 5 years. Is that? I bet you that's never happened.
2017. Before. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 6th year.
Oh, okay.
This next year will be his 7th. Hey, that's still impressive though. Two out of your 6 seasons, you won a Super Bowl.
Well, it is first 6.
What did Brady at this point?
You have to pull that up. My bigger question is: both quarterbacks in the Super Bowl have less than 6 years of experience in the league. Has that ever happened before?
Man, I wonder if I can find. Let me see.
I guess probably you may have to go back. I don't know.
2001 was his first Super Bowl victory. He started playing in 2000, so I guess it was only in year 2. When did he have his second one? 2000. Okay, so Brady had 3 Super Bowls by 2004. So Mahomes is going to have to win a couple more here early on to stay on track with Tom Brady. All right, here we go.
No, I don't
Yes,
love you.
with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friends at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Make sure when you're down in Clarksville, right off of I-65, Veterans Parkway, and in Evansville, right off of the Lloyd. Easy to get to. Incredible places to watch IU games. Over 50 TVs. Their food's made fresh daily as well, and it is incredible. I can speak from experience. We just had a great event down there in Evansville at the Bubba's 33, thanks to Kristen and all those folks. But make sure you stop in there, and because they if you're in and around these places, this is how we're able to bring you this content. So please keep that in mind. Without sponsors, we can't do this, even with you guys here. So we appreciate you, but we need the sponsors and we need you guys to support them. Whether it's Endeavor Hospitality, Andy Moore Honda, all of them. The restaurants, stop in and have a bite. Tell them that Indiana Sports Beat Radio sent you. As a matter of fact, at BB's, anytime you go in there, you mention Indiana Sports Beat Radio and you get 5% discount off of whatever you're buying, which is incredible. Saw Scott Rowland in there couple times over the weekend, chatting with him about his Hall of Fame induction. Scott's in there very frequently. It's where he gets his meets. But was talking about, he has to decide the hat he's going to wear and all that stuff. But just what a great experience it was for him and his family. And that's what was most important for him. We were talking. He's like, Dad, did you see the video of my mom and dad found out? I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. That's what mattered most to him. It was all the family stuff and learning about his E5 charity that I did not know about is amazing. He brings in teams to his camp and he has a baseball thing set up. They all 4 different teams. They're all provided with real Major League Baseball uniforms for the Reds, Cardinals, Phillies, and Blue Jays, the 4 teams he played for. And it's just a great, great thing. But what a great guy. Congratulations to him again. But fun stuff there. Indiana now travels to Northwestern, the team that just knocked off Purdue. I was already thinking before that game that I think Indiana is going to go to Northwestern and win because of how well they're playing. Northwestern's not going to be easy. I mean, they should not have won at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. That was Indiana not being tough enough yet. They were not what they are today. And I'll quickly get back to that tweet I sent out. I'll talk about it more tomorrow with Mike, but I sent out a tweet that posted the numbers before and after what we're calling this. I don't know what to call it. The line of demarcation. This is what I'm calling it. In the tweet, I mentioned that the thing that separated it was when this letter was posted that was received, and it's not the letter, people. That's why I didn't say the letter caused this. Everyone assumed that. And that's what happens when you assume. Have I ever minced words? Does anyone ever feel that they are not sure what my opinion about something is? I don't think so. I think I'm pretty clear and pretty opinionated. So if I don't name a person, there's a reason. if I don't give credit to something, there's a reason. I'll say, this is what I think. If I think something, but people assumed things. That line of demarcation, as I said earlier, was just the coagulation of a bunch of things coming together. Injuries healing for Trace, but not the other guys. So they still had to deal with that. But there was a lot of mental healing. There was a lot of pride that was hurt, whether they want to admit it or not. You lose a game to Iowa that you led by 21 points? Come on. I know Race got hurt in that game, but he was hurt in the games afterwards that they've won and not played in. They just weren't mentally ready for that. Mike Woodson said that they were shell-shocked when he got hurt. Well, you got to be stronger than that mentally to not be shell-shocked. They are now. They weren't then. But that's part of what happened during this line of demarcation. It's unquestionable that there has been a change. Now, is there one thing that's caused it? Hell no. And if anybody really thinks that, then I don't have time for you. You got to be smarter than that. Just because you assume something, it's a combination of, like I said, Trace's back getting better. But why did they have a team meeting? It wasn't because somebody's back was hurting. It's because they weren't tough enough. They weren't playing well enough. They weren't doing the things they need to do. They were sloppy. That's part of it. Mike Woodson and his staff has continued to coach this team. Their defense has become really good. So Trace is more determined. There are just a litany of things that you cannot eliminate that are a part of it. So to simply assume something, it cracks me up, but it just shows that you have to just think out for yourself. But there has been a change for this team, no question. And it's a change for the good. They have toughened up mentally. They have toughened up defensively. Miller Kopp has grown immensely into his role. Sometimes that means scoring. A lot of times it doesn't. It means defending, which he did tremendously at Michigan on Jed Howard. Jed Howard was one of the guys that was killing him in the first half. He didn't do jack in the second half. Michigan didn't score in the last 5 minutes of the game. Didn't have a field goal, I think. They missed their last 7 shots. There was turnovers. I remember Trey Galloway grabbing a couple. Miller Kopp guarding Howard, keeping him out. It was just a great, gritty road team effort and team win. But that shows unbelievable growth and maturity in this team. And Jalen Hood-Schifino has just become really comfortable at the one. A bit curious, beyond curious of what's going to happen if Xavier Johnson comes back. I'm not convinced that he does. He has the future to look at, and unless he gets completely healed, I don't know that he's going to want to come back and risk injury again, but we don't know the exact medical. Everybody that said when Trace Jackson Davis was dealing with back issues, well, he was only 50%. Wow. Doctors, I see. Doctors that have information that no one else has, I see. I don't know what percentage he is. We don't know what Xavier is, what his thoughts are. Is he going to try to push it to get back? People can put out rumors all they want. I don't know. I'm sure he wants to come back and play, but unless he's 100% healthy, is that good for him and or the team? We'll see. That's just stuff that happens in the future. Now, when he does come back, this offense is going to be altered. I don't know that you put him at the one when he comes back. You certainly don't start him at the one. If he's going to start, I'd put him at the 2, but I wouldn't start him. I would let him come in for Jalen Hood-Schifino at the one to give him a break. But there's just the good thing is these are all good problems for Indiana to look forward to. They're rolling. They've won 7 out of their last 8 games. They can win at Northwestern. I believe that. They can win out. Now, that's a tough road to hoe. That's a tough road to hoe there. You win at Northwestern. You're going to win at Michigan State. You're going to win at Purdue. Hey, if you get that done, that has unbelievably altered Indiana's fortunes and will catapult them up in
1 minute.
Anything. Their ceiling seems to have been a 3 seed. Tomorrow, remind me, this team is just for some reason putting this tournament thing in my head, and I hate to think about that, but we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Big thanks to Dustin Schutte, Dustin Dopirak, Don Fischer, of course, John, the producer, and most importantly, thanks to you guys for being here with us, as always. We appreciate you. We're back tomorrow to do it again with plenty more. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network joins us fresh off of his appearance on the Big Ten last night. So we'll look forward to talking to him about everything that happened this weekend and what's going forward. Chronic Hoosier as well. Big thanks to all of y'all. Go out and have yourselves a great, great day. Back here tomorrow to do it all again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.